lovely people, my name is Emma and today we're going to be doing a double whammy book review where I'm going to be talking about two books around a similar kind of topic. These are both non-fiction and they are both about fungi, mushrooms, however you want to kind of vibe with that, mycelium in general. The first book I'm going to talk about is Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. This is sort of the macro version of this topic. This is the pop science zoomed out look at mycelium, which is the technical scientific term for fungi and like the tendrils of fungi that kind of bury under the world, the bit that you can see that you can't see other than the mushrooms, basically. Mycelium are very weird, they are very difficult to categorize in science, and they are something that we definitely don't understand a crazy amount about. And this book is really interesting because it pulls back the curtain and kind of looks at what do and don't we know about mycelium and just how strange and cool these things are. I listened to this on audiobook and absolutely blitzed it. This book has been out for a while and was definitely a slam dunk, but I wanted to do a little mini review to like bring a highlight back to it because I was talking about it at work the other day and I've been mentioning it in a few comments and it's just fantastic. This takes a look at a bunch of different areas to do with mycelium and sort of what is our current science about it now. It looks at some of the paleontology and sort of fossil record we have for when mycelium would have appeared and how it's interacted with plants and sort of trees and stuff in the past and what evidence we have for that, and then it's kind of rolling the modern day. It does cover things like, you may be familiar with cordyceps, which is the fungus that takes over ants, that is what The Last of Us is based off of. There's a whole chapter on that. And as a side note, if you're interested in crazy, like parasitic fungal zombies, you should totally check out a podcast called Ologies, specifically the neuroparasite podcast episode where they talk about all things that take over various different animals' brains. I will link it down below. It's wild. But back to this book anyway, that's also wild. So you get to learn about that, but there's also loads of cool bits about like how we can use mycelium to deal with things like nuclear waste or to form different kinds of like versions of vegan leather and things like that. And there's also how mycelium has been used to like connect trees in the past and how there's like a forest that is basically one gigantic mycelium network and it's thought to be like the largest living organism ever, and how like weird it is to try and divide up and how like plants and mycelium really refute the idea of like singular entities and how you draw those boundaries between one thing and another thing. And there is a chapter about like psychedelics as well, which was pretty cool and interesting. So basically this is a book that you should totally check out if you have any kind of interest in biology or science or nature in general, because it will just repeatedly keep blowing your mind. It's one of these ones that is just every other page is a brand new really cool fact that you probably haven't heard of before. I'm genuinely tempted to reread it because I think a second time around I pick up even more. And Merlin Sheldrake has a wonderful writing style, really easygoing, not a crazy amount of scientific terms, very well explained and incredibly accessible even if you aren't a big biology nerd. So definitely check that out. Then if you're interested in it but you're like, I'm not a big fan of the macro, I want more of the human element behind these kinds of things, I think, or if you just want to read something like alongside Entangled Life, which is what I ended up doing, I read these books side by side, you should check out The Way Through the Woods by Litt Woon. This is a book about overcoming grief through nature, specifically mushroom foraging. So we're going from our macro zoomed out look at mycelium in general and really honing in on the mushroom side of them in particular and the wonderful world and community that is mushroom foraging. Litt Woon lost her husband and was completely adrift in grief and then managed to like rediscover herself and her identity through mushroom foraging. You get to learn about her experience. It's a really lovely conversation about grief and what that process is like. So there's sort of a different human aspect to it there. But then you also have the mushroom community and like the sort of rules and regulations that are in place for mushroom foraging, because it's something that whilst is extremely rewarding, is also incredibly dangerous because not an insignificant number of mushrooms out there will try and kill you if you eat them. This book talks about what that means and how like you have different criteria for what's considered poisonous through different countries based on like what that country is happy with for a tolerance level, and like how, you know, and that's like a well documented fact of human beings is, you know, alcohol is poisonous and yet a lot of us actively partake in it all the time. We are frequently poisoning our bodies to varying different degrees, and mushrooms are no different. People have very different tolerances and sort of boundaries for what they will or won't consider to be edible. It also looks at some of the qualifications that you can do in mushroom foraging and how you can be one of the people who like checks people's baskets to make sure that they're not accidentally going to cook up a mushroom omelette that's going to murder the entire family. It's just generally really, really cool. and like takes aspects of Entangled Life but does them in a far more zoomed in, like I say, human way. You meet a huge, wonderfully varied cast of characters, some like repeat people who come back who are really big names in the mushroom foraging world, a world I didn't even know really existed until this book and was so freaking awesome to learn about. So yeah, just a lovely zoomed in beautiful book about grief, mushrooms, and how cool nature is. So there you have it. Those are 2 books about mushrooms, mycelium, fungi in general. Do let me know in the comments down below, have you read these? Like I said, Entangled Life was really big a couple of years ago. I'm sure this isn't news to anybody, but I thought it'd be fun to do a little review of some books that have been on my shelf for a while. And shout out, I do have a book called Slime, a history that I will hopefully be reading soon that is kind of in a similar area to this, so maybe that'll be one that I get to tack on at some point later. So have a wonderful reading week and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.